So, hello class. Thank you for joining us. Actually, let me go ahead and change this so we're side by side. Thank you for joining us, class. This is our guest speaker number 2 for spring 2018. Today we are joined by Cesar Rodriguez, who has his master's in counseling and is currently a therapist. You can read more about his biography in the handout that is on Titanium. Hopefully by now you have already watched his videos from earlier, which included a demo that he did with his fellow classmate, Carla, who is also a graduate of the counseling program at Cal State Fullerton. And they also had a little bit of a Q&A about their background. So this video is going to focus more on what he's been up to since then and responding to some of your questions. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello. So Cesar, can you tell us a little bit about how you got the job that you have right now?
Yeah, actually Carla is the one that referred me to Pathways. She no longer works at Pathways. However, she contacted me and told me that this is a great organization and you get to work with low-income families, predominantly Hispanic families. And I got really excited about it, and that's how I learned about working at Pathways.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about what does the organization do overall and maybe what your day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, so overall what we do is we serve low-income families, and the population that we work with are children. The youngest client I have is between the ages of 3 all the way up to the oldest. I believe I have a 17-year-old, but we go to up to 21.
Wow.
So we provide mental health services. They come in. Usually their parents refer to their children to come over here. Sometimes it's to school. Sometimes it's a social worker. And they refer to us, and then we open up their case. We do what is called an intake, where we do an assessment, where we get to all the identifying information about what's presenting, and then we follow up with a diagnosis. Your second question on what do I do on a day-to-day basis? Mm-hmm. The first thing I do is when I get to work is I do some self-care. That's the first and foremost thing that's important for me.
That's awesome.
I want to make sure I meditate before I see my clients, because this field can be kind of difficult, and making sure that I manage my feelings, my thoughts. So I start off my day with that. And then when I get starting to do paperwork, I review everything that I need to do, what's on the agenda, which clients am I going to see, what notes I need to continue working on, and who I need to follow up with and make phone calls. I also I'm starting to learn that there's a lot of no-shows when you're working with families that provide insurance. So I have to make a lot of phone calls just to remind them we have a session coming up. And then throughout my whole day, I'm doing sessions. Sometimes I'm doing my sessions in my office, and sometimes I'm doing them at the school. And once in a while, I'll go to their homes. And the reason why we do that is because they're low-income families. So a lot of these minorities don't have the resources. Some of them don't have cars. Some of them have to work 2 8-hour shifts, and they don't have the resources to bring their child. However, they know the importance of mental health, and they're wanting their child to continue getting services, even though they're not able to come over.
Wow. So how have you learned to kind of deal with some of those barriers? I mean, clearly it's wonderful that the folks that are coming to see you already recognize that mental health is important. But what are some of the things that you have seen your agency do to address some of those concerns?
Yeah, so a big barrier is, like I said, transportation. So what we offer is bus transportation, so they can get assistance. So that way they're not having to pay out of their pocket. If they need gas money, if they need help with any kind of sort of driving here, we try to help them out. And what we also do is we provide referrals to organizations that are called wraparound teams. that are able to provide numerous services, whether it's like a big brother or a big sister, whether it's someone driving their child to an appointment. Basically, it's a team that it's kind of like a village to support this family to make sure that they get all their services that are needed. So what I do is I collaborate with professionals in the community and I make sure that they get those resources in order for them to reach their treatment goals.
That's awesome. I think it's wonderful that, you know, you have these partnerships in the community, right? Because as you alluded to, the people that you are serving are probably also low income, probably facing a variety of issues beyond whatever mental health concern that they're presenting. So it's definitely great to hear that there's that collaboration going on.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to note that it's wonderful that you start your day off with that self-care.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, one of the questions that a student had was, since counseling people with unhappy experiences is difficult, how do you tolerate your emotional stress? So.
Yeah, I definitely have to increase my self-care. When I notice that I'm feeling really down, depressed, maybe something that I heard from a client really triggered me, which is called countertransference. I make sure I manage it by reaching out to other professionals. I seek out a therapist myself. I also do my own self-care. If I'm not, doing my self-care where I'm walking or meditating or taking care of my dogs or going to the gym on a daily basis, that's when I know my energy is really down. And that's when I start assessing, like, okay, I need to increase my self-care. And I know a lot of times people think, oh, self-care, it's so selfish. It's like, oh, it's all about you. However, in the field that I'm in, it's very important because, like, the person that's asking that question, it can be very hard dealing with people's emotions. So making sure that I manage my own emotions and taking care of myself in order to provide great service to my clients.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's important to note that even though our students are interested in a variety of careers, some of them counseling, social work, but others, like even with like physical therapy, public health, physicians, what have you, whenever you're interacting with other people.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you're working at the DMV, right, or anywhere where you're dealing with humans, it's important to have that self-care, right?
Yeah. And I think it's great that even as a therapist, you're still seeing a therapist, right?
Yeah. I have to practice what I preach, right? Like if I'm encouraging someone to go see a therapist, I'm also having to buy my own product too. So it's important for me to see my own therapist.
That's great. I'm going to shift to some of the other questions that students provided last week. Kind of going along the lines of practicing what you preach. Someone had a question, how does being a therapist impact your own relationships outside of work? Do people feel like you may be judging them from a therapist point of view when you encounter normal issues? I'm not quite sure what normal issues are, but probably like everyday issues. So how do you kind of balance that? Like you do what you do at work, but when you leave work, are you still in that therapist mode?
Right. So as soon as I got into this master's program, I learned a set of skills. I became basically like a superhero where I can like see things and everything is enhanced. I pay attention to what they're saying. I'm paying attention to how they're saying it. I'm definitely paying attention to nonverbal communication, and I'm picking up on so much more. Not so much what they're saying, but their delivery or their posture. Are they closed off if they're open? And that plays a big part, a factor, their energy. Now, when I am outside of work, I definitely don't want to be a therapist. I definitely want to just be present in the moment and listen. What I do though is now that I have these set of skills, I know I don't want my friends or family members to feel like they're being judged, analyzed, pathologized. But what I do is I do some small things such as reflective listening. I become very empathetic and caring. And that's pretty much the basics of what I do to my family and my friends. I share advice with my family and friends, which I don't do in my professional setting, where I'm like, you should do that to my clients. But with friends and family, I definitely listen to them, and I make sure that when I'm with my mom or my family or whoever, that I'm actually just being a caring person, and I'm not, therapizing them.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I personally have been trying to figure out as well. Like being a public health professional, at what point are you just like, I'm not here to educate, but maybe I'll share some information. Feel free to use it if you want to. But yeah.
Yeah, it's having that balance of like listening to understand versus like, let me do some psychoeducation, because I know naturally in my professional or personal relationships that people become very resistant, and they don't want to open up at times. So just being understanding, and I think that's the most important part. I think the majority of my friends and my family, when they come up to me and talking about the things that they're struggling with, they just want to vent, and that's the only thing they want to do. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be told what to do. They just want to vent to someone, and if I can hold that space for them in a personal setting, then I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, great points. Let me see. We had a lot of great questions, so let me see which one we're going to go to next. I guess kind of shifting more towards education. Can you share a little bit about what your undergraduate experience was like, community college and bachelor's degree, and how were your undergraduate plans in line with or different from what you pursued for graduate school?
Okay, so taking it back to when I was in community college, I was at Saddleback Community College for about 10 years. Typically, when people are in junior colleges, they're supposed to be there for 2 years. However, I did not know what I wanted to do. I wasn't focused, I wasn't driven, and I struggled a lot when I was in community college. And I lacked the ability to use resources to help me to increase my knowledge and my structure in my life. And that's why it took so long. But once I was able to stay focused on my goals, I transferred to Cal State Fullerton Irvine campus. So the part that I loved about going to Cal State Fullerton Irvine campus was that it was a commuter school. It was really close to my house. It helped with a lot of the anxiety I felt of like going to the big campus. Parking is an issue. Stress of like trying to find parking. You having a midterms or finals, and you have to show up and not be late, and it was just overwhelming. But knowing that going to the Irvine campus was so small that the interactions with the teachers were really amazing. The ratio for the classes were like 1 to like 15 in normal. So it was really having that one-on-one connection with the teacher. So that was really nice. And then I didn't know I wanted to get into counseling when I was doing my undergraduate, when I was getting my, when I was at community college. However, I was taking a counseling class during my undergraduate when I was getting my bachelor's in sociology. And I'll talk a little bit more about sociology in a second. But I took this counseling class that was really helpful. And it was a theories class about, different therapists and, how they conceptualize. And I started applying it to my life, my personal relationships. And I thought, wow, this makes a lot of sense. And it was like a light bulb that just went off in my head. Like, this is so amazing. This is something that I would love to do, because it's all making sense of why I am the way I am, or why my, personal relationships, that's why they're playing out the way they're playing out. So I said, wow, this is something I definitely want to do. And going back to being a sociology major, it really helped me to see and conceptualize how everything plays a factor. I think with psychology, it focuses just on the individual, but just noticing how the environment plays a factor, the school, the relationships, the environment, the family members all play a part of what's presenting with a person and how it could be affecting or not affecting somebody. So that helped me to see things in a sociological perspective, in a micro versus macro level. And then, yeah, once I took that counseling class in undergrad, I decided this is something I really wanted to do. And then my last year of undergraduate school, I applied for my master's degree, and it took a lot of work. It was like taking another class because I had to write a 3,000 word
Statement.
statement, just talking about my short-term goals, my long-term goals, and all this was really amazing because it helped me conceptualize, what my goals were and where I wanted to be in my life. And that took a long time to do. And it was so amazing. And when I got accepted to the master's program, I was just so excited, and it was such an amazing opportunity. And I wanted to live it up and take advantage of this great opportunity because not many people can say they haven't had a chance to seek higher education.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know the exact stats, but I think it's something like less than 10% of the population has a graduate degree or something like that. And then particularly when you look at communities of color, it's even smaller. So it's definitely a huge accomplishment. Even just to submit the application and then to get accepted is a huge one. And to be able to complete that, it's all, it feels wonderful. So congratulations.
Thank you. And Aaron, I want to highlight what you said. Being a minority, there wasn't many people before me that I saw seeking higher education. And even when I got into my master's program, I was out of the, I want to say 80 people that got into the master's program, I was the only person that was a male Hispanic. And it was really like, at times I felt out of place. Do I belong here? I definitely felt like I had a chip on my shoulder that I had to prove, not only to the teachers there that accepted me and to the students that are different of culture me, that I belong here, and that I didn't, they didn't have to reach a quota for me to be in this program, that I really worked hard to contribute to this master's degree.
Yeah, that's definitely a message that we try to send to our students, that their stories and their experiences are definitely needed in the field, right? And it's not like from a tokenized perspective, but that knowing that particularly in a lot of our communities, they're the ones facing certain health disparities, and because they've lived in those communities and they understand the culture and the barriers, they also understand the strengths as well, right? And that knowledge is needed in these fields. So,
Yeah, just having that knowledge, like you said, of especially my culture, having it very collectivistic, how we navigate that way, how we work towards the goals of the whole family versus what's best for us. And that role plays in many different cultures. It plays in the Middle Eastern culture, in the Asian culture. A lot of families are very collectivistic, working towards a team goal.
Yeah, that's great. Someone else had a question related to grad school, but now for you as a working professional, do you feel as though getting your master's in clinical counseling really equipped you for the different cases you'd be facing when dealing with your clients? Or were there times, you can't really use your education to help you figure out the situation? If so, how do you manage to offer help and advice? So how much did grad school prepare you, and how much of it is, just reacting or coming up with other ways to address what's going on?
Grad school helped me out in two ways. I want to say personally and professionally. I'll start off with personally first. It helped me out personally because grad school and counseling, it was kind of like therapy. It was very informative. There was blind spots I wasn't even aware of myself, and it forced me to look at myself and identify why I was being triggered. So personally, I grew as a person. My relationships are much richer now and healthier. And professionally, it helped me to, whenever I help out a client, whether they're going through something and I'm able to help them out professionally, and I'm assessing what's going on, it helps me to conceptualize, okay, the cultural background, the socioeconomic status. It helped me to focus on meeting the client where they're at and just being aware of everything playing a factor. And I think what's really great about the Cal State Fullerton campus master's program was that it was very we focused on a lot of different backgrounds, whether it was religion, sexual orientation. So the fact that we were focusing on so many different factors, it helped me to see my clients and help them out.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful to be able to recognize like the different intersectionalities that patients or
Yeah,
clients bring when they come to see you, right? Even though we recognize that everyone is a human, right? Like they have these different backgrounds and experiences that influence their thinking, their issues, like the different things that have brought them to where they are today.
yeah, and just like what you're saying, so when I hear someone, for example, if they're sharing some identifying information and I hear that they're heterosexual, I hear that they are male, or if I hear that they're Hispanic, if I hear all these things, if I categorize them in a box, I'm already making an assumption that they're already going to fit this mold. So what was really great about my master's program was identifying where these stereotypes are, where they come from, and being aware of like why I think the way I think and why do I think these stereotypes happen, whether they're positive or negative. And then not also thinking that just because they fit these categories, there's fluidity in reading these categories, whether they're male or female. What's it like to be a male? What's it like to be a female? And seeing that not all males act the same, not all females act the same, not all heterosexual, homosexual people act the same. So meeting people exactly where they're at. So the part what I learned the most, which I applied to my field, is that having that knowledge of like what's going on, how culture plays a factor, but also not pathologizing them and be like, okay, so you must be like this because based off your culture, but really just being present in how their conceptualization of the world and how they view what's going on. And that helps me to be present in the moment and not just being like, oh, every person fits a certain category.
Yeah. So has that training helped you as you deal with a variety of different folks? Because I think you mentioned earlier that most of your clients are low income and Hispanic, but I'm sure that they're all going through very different experiences, right?
Yeah, it definitely helps me um, to be present and not see them as like a cluster of people, rather just seeing them as my clients, as my 1 hour with them. And the programs definitely helped me to apply that, because I work with different diagnoses. I work with sometimes I work a lot with the children. However, most of the time I work with the family members, because I definitely want to incorporate family systems into helping out my client.
On that note, someone had a question of what the toughest case was that you ever worked on. Can you tell us a little bit about what was challenging about that and then how you resolved it?
Yeah, I had one client that she had high suicidal ideation, and she wanted to attack her family members, and she wanted to commit suicide in session. And just like was my very first time this is happening to me. And so the first thing I did was I called 911, and I had police come over, and I called the rest of my clinical team to help me out to assess what's going on. And what's really great is just having a team supporting you, just having a support of the CAT team, just to assess their suicidal ideation and making sure that safety was the most important. So I want to say that was probably my hardest case. I deal with other hard cases too, where sometimes my clients are resistant to therapy. They're not open to coming. The way I manage clients are not wanting to come. Some of them are mandated. They're having to come because social services told them that they have to come, or the court mandated to come. And when I work with clients that are not wanting to come to therapy, I definitely normalize their feeling. I don't come from like this psychoeducation. I'm like, well, look at all the benefits of coming to therapy, because naturally they'll just become defensive. So I go in the route of being empathetic with them and be like, yeah, you really don't want to be here. Your parents surprised you. You didn't even know you were coming to therapy. That really sucks that you're here. You're here right now, and that sucks that you're here. But let's just try to do what's best, and work together as a team, and just try to build interest, build that relationship. Because I think once there's a relationship, then they'll be more open to having conversations.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, both of those experiences are different levels of difficulty, right? Someone who it feels like they're completely hopeless in the way that you're able to intervene there versus someone who doesn't want your help, right?
You're right.
How do you be what each of those people need at that moment, right? I'm sure it's kind of it's difficult to make those switches sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we have time for perhaps one more question.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
let me narrow it down. Okay. So this question comes from someone who is planning to pursue public health, but is also interested in working with children and youth, so about the same age range as you. What is one thing that you wish someone doing prevention with children would know to better help and address their needs prior to having to get to the point of needing intervention with you?
So I want to make sure I got this right. So what is the best way to intervene with somebody that before they come to therapy?
Or like, what is something that for folks who are taking a more preventive approach, like trying to before they get to a level of crises that they would need to have an intervention, or they would need to seek therapy with you?
Right. Before they come to therapy, if people start noticing impairments in their day-to-day activities, if they're noticing impairments at their work, if they're noticing impairments at their school, for example, if their grades are getting really low and it's adjusting and it's being affected, if their social relationships are getting worse, they're not building relationships, if their relationships with their family members are decreasing, there's a lot of conflict at home. Those are all, signs of like, hey, there's something going on. And when that happens, I think it's important for someone obviously to see a therapist. But if they have someone that they can trust, I think that's the most important part, knowing that they have someone that they can talk to. Therapy is not for everyone, but I definitely think it's for a lot of people. But I think knowing that you can talk to someone, whether it's a parent, whether it's a family, a friend, or anyone, a teacher, just having that trust, I feel comfortable and safe around you. I can tell. So it's really building that relationship with anyone. And then if that doesn't work out, then seeking professional help, because we all need professionals to help us out.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. I think it's important for us to recognize that while we aren't certified therapists, like being able to build relationships with the different people that we come into contact with. So thank you very much for leaving us on that note. Are there any final words of advice that you want to share with our students?
Yeah, I definitely recommend if you are seeking higher education, please take the opportunity of networking and meeting with these individuals. Get to know what their day-to-day life is like. Maybe take them out for coffee or just get to know them, because you'll get a direct answer what it really looks like once you leave school, and that will be very beneficial moving forward in any field that you decide to do. But really taking your time just to put yourself out there, because you won't know unless you try.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cesar. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your lunch break to share some additional knowledge with our students. So have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Bye.